everybody, welcome back to my channel. I cannot believe that it's already April and that the first quarter of the year has gone by. That being said, I have read a lot so far this quarter. I've read 29 books, but I wanted to talk about the top 10. Okay, this wasn't easy because I have read a lot that was really good this year, but I've also read some duds. That being said, instead of doing like a regular monthly wrap up this time around, I wanted to do a quarterly wrap up. So these are the 10 best of the 29 books that I have read so far this year. Let's dive in. Starting off with Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors. This was the first book I read in 2025 and it has stuck with me ever since. I loved Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors, and so I kind of feel like she's an auto-buy author for me. This is only her second book, but I have loved everything she's written so far. They just kind of make me feel this existential dread that I love living in. So it is about the four Blue Sisters. One of them passes away. That's not a spoiler, but this is a minor spoiler, how she died. So click away if you don't care, but they mention this on page 2 of the prologue. So she dies overdosing on pain medication to deal with her endometriosis. When I read that, that slapped me in the face because I also have endometriosis. Sister who passes away, she's the same age as me. It was just a lot. There's multiple quotes. Nothing about her life portended her death except for the fact that she was in pain. So this book just ripped me wide open. I'm not sure, I've got a lot of tabs in here. I'm not sure which one it is, but one of the sisters says like she took pain medication in order to live and it's what ended up killing her. So it was just a hard read, but it was very beautiful about the sisters coming together in their grief and learning like how to be a trio of sisters instead of a quad of sisters. I thought it was just really well written as always. Coco Mellors just really kind of gets into the nitty gritty of who people are. One thing I've always said about her, and again, this is only her second book, but 2 times is a pattern. I feel like she just knows who her characters are so well in a way that maybe not other books and authors do. And what I mean by that is like there's no kind of discovery time with these characters. It's like here they are, this is who they are. Very quickly you know who you're getting into, and it's just very interesting to kind of see the layers peel back from there, but no, like feeling like I intimately know each and every single one of these sisters from the get-go is just such a beautiful reading experience. So loved this as I expected I would, but just beautiful. 10 out of 10. Then I read I Who Have Never Known Men, and this is a dystopian, I would say literary fiction. A lot of people are disappointed by this book because they expect some sort of like epic tale of what's going on. I should tell you what it's about. I Who Have Never Known Men by Jaquline Harmpan is about a group of 39 women and 1 young girl who are kept underground in a bunker. The little girl has kind of grown up there. She doesn't know anything else. The other 39 women can kind of recall what life was like before, but they have no idea how they got there, why they're there, or like what's going on in the world. And the plot follows these women once they're able to escape and their journey through the world outside of this bunker and what the purpose was. It is such a it's beautiful, it's haunting, because as you're reading, you are kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. You're like, what's around the corner? What's going to happen next? It's very interesting. I think again, I just kind of love these character studies of like, who are women in a world where there are no men? Who are women in a world where they have to do what it takes to survive? I just loved the beautiful peel back of humanity, and also because this group of 39 women who can recall what life was like before, who can recall like proper bathrooms, who can recall proper showers and maybe having a male partner and children and things like that. But this little girl growing up, all she has known is this bunker, and so she doesn't understand why these women like miss a toilet or like why they miss certain things. And it's just very interesting to see the differences between the young girl and the women as they go through this journey of rediscovering the world essentially. But It was very, very haunting. I just think it was so well written. Again, people are too hard on this book. I think that you need to know what you're getting into. Like, this is not some sort of epic apocalyptic battle or apocalyptic zombie tale or anything like that. It is eerie. It is apocalyptic. It's dystopian, sci-fi, that kind of thing. But it is definitely more of a character study, and that's what I love about it. A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. I'm obsessed, to say the least. And I have watched some clips of Ava Reid speaking on a panel, and that woman is insane. She knows her stuff. This is it's, I guess, dark academia in a fantasy setting. Our main character, Effie, is studying at the architecture college, but she really wants to be at the literary college. However, literature does not accept women. There's this big conversation on like their feeble minds and things like that. So she's studying at architecture college. She doesn't want to be there. When she applies for this kind of initiative, her favorite author's house is essentially like in a boggy swamp place, and the house is kind of falling apart. This is definitely a conversation on climate change, which I really love. But so she kind of gets in touch with the estate, and they're like, we want you to come and build up architecture plans for saving this house. So she goes there, and as it turns out, there's also a literary college student there whose name escapes me, Preston. He's there just kind of going through the author's work for his thesis and things like that, and lots of mysterious thing. This is a world where there's kind of a conversation of, are these old folklore fairy tales true? Are they not? The author has written about the fairy king and things like that, so there's definitely like lore and bumps in the night and like things going on. The conversations, again, on climate change, women in literature, and women having rights, essentially, are huge themes in this book, and I love putting those things in a fantasy setting because I do feel like for a lot of people it's a little bit more digestible. I thought it was very compelling, and I can't wait to read the sequel. I hope I'm making sense. I do slowly feel like I'm losing my mind today. Moving on. Out on a Limb by Hannah, I'm going to get this wrong, Hannah Bonam-Young. I keep wanting to call her Helena Bonham Carter, even though the only thing they have in common is Bonham. Anyway, I love this book so much. It takes a little bit for me to giggle and kick my feet at a romance book, but literally by page 4, I was like, the banter was so good, so cute. Our two main characters, Winnie and Beau, hook up at a Halloween party. They both have limb disabilities, so Winnie doesn't have a fully formed left hand or right hand. I can't remember. One of her hands is not as developed as the other one, and then Beau is missing part of his leg. They hook up at a Halloween party. She gets pregnant. Again, not a spoiler. This is on the back of the book. She gets pregnant after the one night stand, and so they decide to become friends and raise this child together because Winnie's always wanted a child, and so she's like, well, I guess it's happening now. So it's just very cute watching these characters come together and figure out raising a child together. Guys, it was so cute. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't do the pregnancy trope. Like, if you squish that in at the end of the book, you will lose some stars. But that being said, that was the premise of this book, so I did feel like I knew what I was getting into, and it was just done so well and so beautifully. I also love that it's Canadian, all of those wonderful things. Then I did read all of the rest of Emily Henry's catalog. I read Book Lovers and Funny Story last year, and so I read everything else this year. Caught up. I honestly gave them all 4 or 5 stars, but out of all of them, I picked Happy Place to talk about. I loved this book. I don't know. It got me in my feels. It is about our two main characters. Oh, yes, Harriet and Win. It was funny because I did read these back to back, where Winnie, or they would call her Win, was the female character, and then Win was the male character in this one. So I took a bit of my brain to be like, what book am I in? Harriet and Win have been in a long-term relationship. They are engaged. However, they break off their engagement and they don't tell the rest of their friends. The rest of their friend group is made up of 2 other couples, and they get together every summer at our one character's beach house. But the beach house is going up for sale, and so they're like, okay, one last time, we're all gonna get together. And so they have to pretend that they're still in a relationship. This book did take me on an emotional roller coaster because as someone who has been in a very, very long-term relationship, the idea of just kind of dropping that and giving up when there was no like wrongdoing, like nobody cheated, nobody did some egregious thing. It was just kind of like they fell apart. And in my head, I was just like, y'all need to work through it. Like, you're gonna throw all of that away. But anyway, it was a beautiful exploration of their relationship and their dynamic with their friends as a couple, because they very strongly felt like if we are not together, like that fractures the entire friend group. So it was a very good exploration. I really had a good time and I loved it. And it's so bright and fun and happy. So I loved it. Summer Fridays by Suzanne Rindell. I hear nobody talk about this, and I think everybody should talk about it immediately. Please and thank you. This is the perfect 90s summer New York rom-com, okay? Loved it. Sawyer is engaged to a lawyer, and he's working every single night and day. He's gone a lot. She starts to think maybe he's having an affair with his coworker, and that coworker's boyfriend, Nick, actually confronts Sawyer and is like, I think our partners are having an affair. And so they meet up to kind of talk about it and try and figure things out, and a romance ensues. The name Summer Fridays is because in this world, during the summer in New York, almost everybody has summer Friday afternoons off. And so Sawyer and Nick get together because their partners are busy and probably having an affair and just gone a lot. Ooh, okay, no, it's so good. It's so good. That's all I'm going to say. I can't really say too much else, but it is definitely so underrated. It was like a rom-com. Like, there were some high stakes emotions and things going on, but for like a rom-com, like a lighter book, like it wasn't egregious or anything like that, but it was like, I couldn't put it down. It was so compelling. I needed to figure out what happens next. Then I read Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, and this was my first Sally Rooney book. I did immediately go and pick up Normal People, which I'm hoping to read very shortly. But I read Intermezzo, which is about two brothers. Their father has died. They've never really been super close, and it follows like both of their lives and how they intersect and how they don't. I don't know. I love when a book kind of leaves me with like a really somber feeling. I did not totally love the ending for one of the characters, and so I gave it only 4 stars. But that being said, it was such a good read. And again, I just love a beautiful exploration of people and people's emotions. Like, I'm going to eat it up every single time. So Intermezzo was no different. I don't know why it took me so long to read, because I think I got this for Christmas and it just took me so long to read, but I'm so glad I did. It was so good. I can't wait to read her entire back catalog. Then I read Tender is the Flesh. 5 stars. This one is gonna like stick with me forever. I'm gonna be thinking about it for the rest of my life because I think about it almost every single day. This is originally translated from Spanish, but it is a future dystopian world in which animals can no longer be consumed for meat, and so they have adjusted to a human meat processing situation. I think the main theme of this is just kind of like a look on capitalism. I think also human nature, like how far are you willing to go? Also, how far removed do you have to be okay with this? If you're not the one killing the human, if you're not the one processing them, if you don't know who they are, where they came from, like how far removed do you have to be to kind of be complicit in this? But I also think, or at least something that I took away from this, was on just like the brutality of meat processing in general. And I have been plant-based vegan for quite a number of years now. So this kind of just like solidified my stance in that. Whether the author was directly commenting on that, I don't know for sure. It could go either way, but still, like, such a very compelling read, and it was so haunting. It was grossly descriptive. I think it had to be to get its point across. But I really appreciated that. But this is about our main character, who kind of is high up in the meat processing plant. His wife has left him, not like officially, but she has moved to live with her mother because they had a baby and it died and she's grieving. She left. And so it kind of details his life in the aftermath of all of that while all of this is going on. It is really good. It's definitely not for the queasy or the faint of heart, but if you can stomach a little bit of grossness, then I would definitely say read this one. It is definitely a really good look at capitalism, humanity, etc. Then of course, I read Sunrise on the Reaping. This is Suzanne Collins. It is a book in the Hunger Games series. This is about the 50th Hunger Games, which was Hamish Abernathy's games. And I will say, I don't think that Suzanne Collins ever writes for a cash grab. I don't think at any point she's like, yeah, I could use some more money. Let me milk that Hunger Games cow a little bit more. I think she's very intentional in what she has to say, and I think she's getting more and more obvious with each book she writes, with Songbird, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and now this. Like, she's not really hiding her feelings or her views. She's not really hiding what's going on. It's very obvious. And I think with a lot of people, like, we knew a good amount of Hamish's games from the original trilogy, from what Katniss knew. But of course, that's only what Katniss knew. And a lot of that was capital propaganda. A lot of what really went down in Hamish's games was hidden from the districts and from the capital. So it was really interesting it was just really interesting. There was so much more new information. That's all I can say. The ending, the epilogue, oof. The ending and the epilogue, back to back, double whammy, knocked me out, knocked the wind out of me. I actually did sob. Here's a picture. That's the grossest I've ever allowed myself to look on the internet. It was so emotional. It was just so good. I feel like it just added to the universe. It didn't take away, and it wasn't like a cash grab. It was very thoroughly thought out, very intentional, and I loved it. Okay, last top book of the first quarter so far is Viscous by V.E Schwab. I'm jumping into the sequel right away. This was so good, and I'm so sad I waited this long to read anything from V.E Schwab, but especially like this book I thought was so well done. This is about Victor and Eli. They're college roommates, and they decide to do their thesis on EOs, which is extraordinary people. The idea that there are people, like, it's not even like really superhero-esque, like, oh, somebody can shoot lasers or whatever, but it's like people with different abilities, with super strength, with different powers, usually related to a near-death experience. So they start experimenting with this in order to give themselves these kind of abilities. And then it details how that started 10 years later. It is a very thorough and complete story. I loved every second of it. It was so compelling and so good. And it was great because this was mostly told from Victor's perspective. They had like an immediate falling out. Like, that's evident from page 1. They had an immediate falling out after they started this experiment. And so you really get Victor's perspective on why Eli is the bad guy, why he hates them. But at the same time, like, you don't really sympathize with Victor. I thought it was good that it was like, or I thought it was interesting that it was like, I don't really sympathize with either of these. And I know that there are a lot of books where the main character is meant to be terrible. I know people talk about Yellowface a lot. I haven't read that yet, but people talk about how there's a lot of good books where you're not supposed to like the main character. And this kind of felt a little bit like that. Like, I could kind of get behind him. I was like, yeah, this guy's kind of cool, but also like why he's doing what he's doing, he's kind of terrible. So it was easy to kind of hate on him, which I liked. It was a really different experience, kind of like, am I rooting for this main character? That's going to cover it for my top 10 books of the first quarter. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Maybe you got some book recommendation ideas, but either way, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to finish my coffee, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!